Max Kellerman was on with Bill Simmons on his podcast. Max is out touring now and seeming to take some shots back at Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, when Max was down and silenced and gagged and playing out his non-compete and his contract, Stephen A. was running around telling everybody, how bad Max was and how he didn't need Max. It looks like Max is getting some get back. And so I'm going to play two or three of these clips here, and then you and I will react to them overall. Let's start with shot number 2. This is Max Kellerman talking about how much better of a debater he was than Stephen A. Smith. Shot 2.
If you're doing a debate show and you're a competitive person, why would you want me as a partner? That's bad. You want to go 15 rounds every day with Muhammad Kellerman? That's just bad. It's embarrassing,
So you think that was part of it? He didn't want to put the time in? Or just wanted a different type of show? What's your take looking back 2 years later?
I don't think it has to do with put the time in. It's a debate show.
You're ready to roll on all topics.
You want to if you're, I have an idea. This is what I want to put on TV. I want to spar Bud Crawford every day for 15 rounds, and I want everyone to see it. Eventually, you're going to say, I don't want to do that anymore.
And you bring in some other people in a rotating cast.
Yeah. That's one aspect of it. There are others. In other words, that's what I could tell you from my point of view.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you make a calculation that if you can be perceived as a solo act, really, that you can get paid at a certain level that you can't if you're not a solo act, then you'd like to be a solo act, or at least perceived that way.
Let's start there. He's basically arguing, and Bill Simmons called him out on it, and Max backed away from it, probably didn't want to say it. But Bill Simmons is right because he knows enough about Stephen A. Smith that Stephen A. Smith doesn't want to put the work in. He wants to show up and just be a personality. And Max kind of went on and explained this later in the interview. I don't know if we have that full clip, but Bill Simmons is like, hey, Stephen A. was too lazy to debate with you on a consistent basis. And Stephen A. has this perception, I'm the hardest working man in sports media. And what that means is right before the cameras come on, I'll show up and talk and do my whole Stephen A. shtick with anybody. But in terms of preparation and things like that, that has never been Stephen A.'s forte, and it's why he was always outmatched trying to debate Max Kellerman. Your thoughts?
I think the phrase that we're looking for as it relates to Stephen A. Smith's knowledge across the board, a mile wide, but only an inch deep. And I get it. I actually believe it's very difficult to be an expert in all things. And when Stephen A. made his ascension and when he had, I thought, more credibility as a voice, he was basically NBA. And I've told you this, back in the early 2000s when I first heard of him, and he was really a guy that was connected to the city of Philadelphia, and namely Allen Iverson, when he would do hits, I actually found it interesting, believe it or not. But when you start doing, football, then basketball, then he tried to do combat sports, and he was terrible at it, okay? And then baseball, and you're wondering, how much baseball do you watch? I do think that there's a point of diminishing returns. But to Max's point, Max, don't flatter yourself. You're not the greatest. You're not Terrence Crawford. You even admitted yourself, you're bashing a tomato can every single day. So let's not crown yourself Sugar Ray Robinson here, okay?
I totally agree with that he beat up a baby seal, and it's no different that Stephen A. runs around. I've had the #1 morning show for 13 straight years. And he never mentions, well, I've had no competition either for 13 straight years. There was one startup network called FS1, and it's a startup network. And so it wasn't a real competition, but he never tells you who's number 2, 3, 4. He's acting like, he took on Oprah Winfrey and Bill O'Reilly and Tucker Carlson in their prime. But let me keep it moving to go ahead.
Yeah, but Jason, it also shows you, no one could put a black man in his place like a white liberal. I mean, my God, you've talked about this, how years ago you were kind of like, there was like this maybe an opportunity for you to work with Max. And some guy said, don't do it. Don't do it. Because here's the problem. And I want to defend Stephen A. a little bit. In that era when they were doing that show, with the political and cultural climate of America, you have this white guy just out-woking you every single day. And maybe his, whatever his views are, you're thinking, oh my God, I got to compete with this guy, trying to like be down. And it puts you in an untenable spot because no matter what you say, there's always going to be a group of people that disagree with you, anybody. But if this guy here is just taking every position of, hey, I'm down with you, oh my God, I could see why Stephen A. got really wary of that whole situation.
I want to buttress your point, but let me play this clip that I think helps set up that point. Let's play SOT 3.
Stephen A. has no hot takes. Stephen A. almost never, I can't think of any counterintuitive conclusions that he ever reaches. That's not his job on the air. His job is to be the big reactor to a counterintuitive conclusion. Reactor. Just, he's there to hear the crazy conclusion that his partner has come to and actually be the everyman with a loud voice. Like, you are crazy, right? And do it theatrically. So there's a lot of pressure on his partner to come up with a counterintuitive conclusion about everything.
And we're only playing a little 30, 40-second excerpt. You got to hear the whole full 2, 3, 4 minutes of that to fully get what Max is saying. But he's right that he was on air debating with someone who flunked 4th grade and who had to leave New York to find a college that would accept him under any circumstances and go down to Winston-Salem State. He's not debating his intellectual equal. That is one thing. And then the point that you make is that Max got his rocks off, for lack of a better description, out-blacking Stephen A. Smith on his own show in a rigged environment where Jack Dorsey owned Twitter, and Twitter was very rigged towards every woke positioner, hey, the police are out mass killing white people, and, it's just rigged woke. And so he's in a rigged fight where if he just takes the black Twitter position, Stephen A. is going to look bad. And I don't blame Stephen A. Smith for being frustrated by that. There's nothing worse than some white guy who is determined to prove to the Twitterverse and everybody else how much blacker they are than you. Stephen A. didn't have the intellectual capacity or really the balls to put Max in his place. Because, trust me, I think far more conservatively in what is seen as sellout positions, far more than Stephen A. Smith. But trust me, I'd have no problem, none, just dicing up Max Kellerman like, hey, man, we ain't doing that. You ain't gonna come on here and pretend like you blacker than me. I'd have just called him out on it in real time and walked him through like all the liberals, white, Jewish people that do this. I mean, it would have just gotten real. Stephen A. can't do that. And so Max got to play the limousine liberal, and Stephen A. had no comeback, and Terrell Owens jumped on him and all this. And I just want to be crystal clear. I like Max, but you put Max in a ring with someone that flunked 4th grade and barely had to travel 2,000 miles to get invited into some poor college. This is what he's going to beat up and bully Stephen A. and put Stephen A. in a bad position. It was a bad combination on a number of levels. Max is a high-level intellectual. Stephen A. Smith is not. Max loves to play the extra black. Hey, me and the black guys, we smoke weed together. And Max is a former rapper as a kid. He's the Eminem of sports talk. And so anyway, go finish your points on that. I just wanted to play that clip.
I just have a question. Who gives less hot takes than a liberal who just panders all the time to that side of the fence, who's a leftist? I mean, say what you want about Stephen A. Smith. At least he says some stuff that he eventually walks back because he doesn't have a lot of courage that goes against the grain. That is a hot take. Some of the people that he stood up for, some of the people that he's criticized. Now, again, He walks it back because he doesn't have the courage of his convictions and he feels the heat. I get that. But there's nobody that gives less hot takes than the liberal, who all they do is pander, knowing that they're going to get support just because it's anti-establishment, anti-white, anti-conservative.